Topic today. So we're going to continue with our layered timelines. They should be looking really good, and they're just going to look better and better as we go on with it. So last week we finished the Russian one, and I know it was very tight. It was really tight as we got especially into the 1900s. Hopefully you found the British one a little bit easier by doing the lines this way all the way and doing the names sideways. Bit more gaps in the British one, except for this period during the 1700s. But apart from that, the gaps are quite nice. So maybe there's something in that. So this week, you're going to do two things. One is you're going to do the USA timeline. So you're going to need the leaders, the presidents of the USA. This one, remember, you need the first one only. This is when they ruled. Just the first one. So just the first one, 1789, that's when we're going to start from 1789. So you can actually see, you can see the Russians started here. The British had our leaders back then. The Americans, modern day America, wasn't until 1789. So the first one, make sure you draw a line. The first one doesn't actually start until that's 1750. In 1789, quite late, isn't it? So I'm going to do the same again. Do your big lines. So do the big line, and then write on there. You can just write, just like it is on there, just their surname. We start with Washington. And that was 1789. And again, go there. Now, I'm already conscious the fact that, well, look where it starts and look where modern day is. Look at this list. You got 45 presidents to fit in. That's a lot. What it does tell you, though, it tells you straight away the differences between these countries. So first of all, I know UK, we still have our kings and queens. We do have a prime minister that runs the country, but generally the UK worked with its monarchy is when the person died, someone else would be in charge, or an occasional place it was a war. USA, well, they generally went with you can have 4 years in charge and then we'll vote again, and then you can only stay in charge for 8 years maximum. So you're gonna have to fit. And here's a challenge, now already looking at this as a challenge. From here to 2017, which is here, 45 presidents. That is a challenge. So small writing. Those lines are going to have to be really close together. But remember, one up there, one down, one up. Ooh, this is going to be tough. I think you'll be able to do it though. So that's the first one. USA, put the 45 presidents in this small gap. What happened in America over here? Well, this is where the second part of today's session goes. So go and do that one first. So pause the video, go and do that first. Now, once you've completed the American timeline, what you're going to do is we're going to unfold our timeline of the leaders. And then we're on the flaps that are these ones, which are the key events. So during each country's history, they had different key events. Some of them were similar, and we're going to add them on. So I'm just going to add on a few now. And then what I'm going to do, and I'll remind you of this, is on the website, I'm going to put a Word document with the events I want you to find out about. So you will go and find out what year these events were, and you'll put them on the timeline. These first ones you can put on the timeline and you can copy what I'm doing, but afterwards you need to go and find the events. So you can Google it. Make sure you find it in a couple of places, some reliable websites of when these things happen. So let's start with Russia. I'm just going to put one on for now, and that is the Russian Revolution. We know that was a big event, and we know That was in 1917. So I'm going to go up at 1950. So 17's quite early on there. Make sure you've got your line. So once again, I'm going to do a line, make it take up most of it, and I'm going to put Russian Revolution. Now there's going to be less events than there are leaders, so we can use a little bit more room on this one. So I'm actually going to do double lines. So Russian Revolution, I'm going to write on both sides, and I know that took part in 1917. So that's one of the Russian ones. I'm going to put a few British ones down. So I'm going to start with the Battle of Hastings. And that is all the way in 1066. 1050, 1066. So we're here. And again, it can be a little bit bigger because we're not doing as many events as leaders. Battle of Hastings. 1066. I'm also going to put in the War of the Roses, which ended in 1485. So 1450, 85 over here. So War of the Roses, 1485. And then I'm going to put World War One. Started in 1914, so I have to make sure if Russian Revolution is there, I've got to make sure it's before that. Now put World War One, 1914. And what you can see and what you can start to do is what is quite interesting, especially with the UK timeline. It's okay, Battle of Hastings happened in 1066. Well, if I go back, that's when the first real King of England was, 1066. We know that battle. We know why that was a key event. Also, the War of the Roses in 1485. If you have a look at this one, your 1485 should lead you to here, Henry VII, and he was in charge of from 1485. So there's a reason why the War of the Roses was in 1485. There's a reason why Henry VII is leader in 1485. Those things are not a coincidence. If you remember from learning about Tudors, the War of the Roses happened because Richard III lost and Henry VII came to throne. So key events do mean and do link to the leaders. And we know the Russian Revolution one does as well. 1917. We've got two leaders in there. Remember, they had one government and then Lenin took it over in 1917. So lots of these key events might link to leaders. Not all of them do. And then let's put the USA. So I'm actually going to put one event for USA, which happens before their first president. So the first president was Washington in 1789, but in 1776, so just a bit before that, 1776 is actually when they got their independence. So independence from UK. But on this side, 1776. And then I'll put one more for USA. It's one we talked about, and it did affect the other countries, but it started in this country, and it was the Great Depression. We talked about the Great Depression. We talked about when we talked about war, because that is how a certain leader managed to wangle his way in Germany, didn't he? The Great Depression really hit Germany hard, but the reason the Great Depression happened was actually because of the stock market in America dropping, and that happened in 1929. So there's the Russian Revolution. So we'll put that in there, and it's the Great Depression. It was in the 20s, happened over many years, but we'll put 1929. So you put them on your timeline. Put the Russian Revolution, put the 3 events for the UK, and put the events I've put for the USA. Then go back to the website, open up the Word document. There are some events for each country you need to plot on this timeline, but you need to go and find out the years.